Welcome, beautiful souls. This is the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast, where intuition becomes your strength and your energy becomes your power. I'm your host, Barbara Savin, author, energy healer, hypnotherapist, and spiritual life coach, and I'm so grateful that you're here. This podcast is a sacred space where we explore intuition, emotional healing, healthy boundaries, and the practices that help us live with greater peace, clarity, and alignment. So if you ever felt overwhelmed or emotionally drained, this space is here to remind you that the wisdom you seek already lives within you. Because the truth is simple. Protect your energy, trust your intuition, and continue your journey as a spiritual warrior. So join me now as your host. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast. I'm your host, Barbara Savin, and as always, I'm so grateful that you've taken this time to be here with me. And on this podcast, we explore healing, personal growth, and the many ways we can better understand ourselves and one another. And sometimes that means looking at life through new perspectives, opening our hearts, and having conversations that invite compassion and understanding. And today, I am honored to be joined by Wendy Cole, a gender diversity consultant who works with organizations, businesses, and communities to help people better understand transgender and LGBTQ experiences. And through education, conversation, and her own lived journey, Wendy helps guide people through topics that sometimes feel unfamiliar or confusing, bringing clarity, empathy, and humanity to the discussion. And born transgender, Wendy stepped fully into her life as an affirmed woman in 2015. And since then, she has shared her story on many podcasts and currently co-hosts the show, Demystifying the Transgender Journey, where real conversations help people better understand what it truly means to live authentically. And Wendy is currently writing 2 books, one about her own personal journey and another designed to support parents navigating life with transgender family members. And this is going to be, I know in my heart, a very thoughtful and meaningful conversation. And boy, Wendy, welcome so much to the show today. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm so honored to be here with you.
And we met through on Christine Blonsdale, her
Right.
masterclass episodes.
Christine was the very first podcast host to ever interview me.
Oh, and she was my very first one on my podcast. I love her.
Absolutely. I've learned so much from her masterclass.
Yeah, so have I, believe me. She'll be happy with talking about her a little bit. Let me ask you, you've shared that you stepped fully into your life as an affirmed woman in 2015. Can you just take us back to that time and share what that transition meant for you on like an emotional, spiritual, and personal level?
Oh, at first, um, well, at first I had a lot of fear, a lot of doubts, and no idea of what life would be like living as a woman.
Mhm.
So I had found out that back in the early 1970s, when I tried the transition the first time, I found out that my diagnosis, according to therapists and the medical community, was psychological, no treatment, no cure. And in fact, at that time, gay people had the same diagnosis. Theirs got changed in 1973. The psychological condition was taken away from their diagnosis. And that didn't happen for me until 2012. And I found out about it in 2014 when I was in a very dark place emotionally. I had been struggling with this for decades, repressing it from childhood. When I told my parents that I was a girl, threatened with being committed, and it just never went away. This does not go away. It's truly how we are born.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, once I discovered that in November of 2014, that my diagnosis had changed, that it was now possible to transition, it was now possible to have therapeutic care, hormone replacement therapy, and any medical surgeries that were necessary. And there were procedures with the W path as to how to do that, how to go through the process and make the life changes and all of that. Scary? Yes, extremely scary. But it was something that I had known my entire life. Um, and I found a very good therapist. I started therapy in January. I had told my wife about this in November when I discovered it, and then I was going to look for a therapist, and she said, "Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, see what you can find out about it now." Because I did get married in the mid 70s, 74, I think it was. I got married in December of 74. It was it was something that I just had to try because everybody, every adult in my life had always told me once you have a career, a wife, a family, a house, you'll forget all about your gender identity and being a girl, being a woman. That didn't happen for me.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in survival mode from the 70s all the way through till 2015.
Wow.
It was in my first therapy session. That's when I discovered, Barbara, all life changes are between your ears.
Mm-hmm.
How you see yourself, how you adjust to your life and your surroundings, and how you feel about yourself is who you are. And I just knew that this was the right thing, but it was just so incredibly scary. I focused on the whole mental aspects of transitioning. Uh, Actually, going through the process, I discovered law of attraction. I discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Mm-hmm.
and one of his books that I will never forget is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I started studying the powers of the human mind, and that it's our mindset, our mental thought processes, all of those things. Um, it's our thoughts and our emotions that block us from seeing what's possible for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, within the first 4 months of 2015, I went from being terrified to I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
And by
See who you
July of 2015, I had moved out of my house about 40 miles away and was living as Wendy full time. I had so many other people say to me, well, uh, transition's difficult and takes a long time. How did you do it in 6 months?
Yeah.
I, I changed my beliefs. If you believe that it's difficult and takes a long time, that's how it will be.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't known anyone in the community when I started, and mentally and emotionally transitioning is was the key for me as to how to do that. I actually deconstructed decades of male socialization so that I could be who I have always felt that I was.
Was.
And I knew at that point that I was born this way, but since over the last 11 years now, I've learned that everybody in the LGBT world is born to be who they are. It all happens in utero during the second and third trimesters of birth. That's when gender identity is formed in the brain. That's when sexual orientation is formed in the amygdala of the brain. And that gender is a spectrum. No one is absolutely male or absolutely female. We're a blend. And it's a spectrum or a gradient in between. And I happen to get a full dose of female.
Female.
And most people know that the body differentiates between male and female during the second and third trimesters of birth. Well, the brain also does the same thing. It differentiates between male and female, and not necessarily in sync with the body.
With the body.
So that's how you can. I'll use this example. There are gay men who seem to be a little more on the effeminate side. Well, that all happened in utero. It's very natural for them. It's how they are. That's what their sexual orientation is. And that's how they act and see themselves. Well, for me, I lived for 67 years knowing fully well who I was, but because of socialization and the Western European heteronormative culture that we live in, it's considered wrong. And it's gotten worse. It was bad in the last century. It was worse in the last century than it is now.
You would think
now,
people are more open, more understanding.
Well, there's more openness, and my own personal experience, Barbara. I did not intend when I transitioned and started living full time in 2015. I was just going to blend into society as any other woman. That's all I wanted to do. And I found out that the 3 gay couples that lived on my street and all the other couples and cisgender people that lived on my street really didn't understand me.
Wow.
They had heard, of course, about transgender and transsexuals and all of that, but they didn't really get it. And I started having conversations. I had a conversation with a gay couple that lived a few doors from me. Lasted for 6 hours, and that was the first time I ever said to anyone in my entire, and I don't know what prompted me to say it. It just felt right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an open book. Ask me anything you want to, and absolutely nothing is off limits. Well, they asked.
I bet they did. Yeah, I bet they did.
I had a fantastic experience with that. And I wound up talking with everyone. And I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole experience of talking with everyone. And within that entire area of the county where I was living for 5 years, I did a lot in the way of educating people and made a very big, profound difference in how people saw people like me. And one of my gay friends said to me, after knowing me for 6 months, it was after a Christmas party, and he's sitting there with tears running down his face. And I said, "What's wrong?" And he said to me, "I have to apologize to you." I said, "You didn't do anything to me." So he said, "No, I used to think horrible thoughts about people like you." This is a gay man. "I used to think horrible thoughts about people like you. You've been so open, so authentic, and so vulnerable, sharing your story and sharing your life with everyone. Um, I'm now embarrassed about how I feel. So I hugged him. I said, we're
Mhm.
friends. That's it. That's
Mhm.
all. No need to apologize. And that was typical of my experiences.
Wow. Now, what did your wife, you were married, you said, right? What did your wife do,
Well,
do or say?
when I found out that my diagnosis had changed and I told her I was looking for a therapist, she said, fine. By my third therapy appointment, um, I hadn't cross dressed in 35 years. I hated cross dressing. It reminded me of what I couldn't be. And for me, it's not about the clothes or the makeup or the hair or anything. It's about who I am and
Mhm.
how I feel about myself. So, um, we had a rule. I wasn't supposed to leave the house in a dress because
Okay.
I was experimenting at that point. And I said, I'm going to my third therapy session as Wendy. We got through that. There was a bit of an argument for a week or so about
I can
that.
imagine. Yeah. I mean, that was, shocking
this
to
was
her.
this was no surprise to
Hmm.
her
Okay. Oh,
because
okay.
because we'd been married for around 4 years. We had a house, a family, um, and I was miserable. This is in the late 1970s. I was miserable. And it was coming out in my sleep. I was talking about being a woman. And she demanded an explanation. So I told her everything, figuring we would be divorced by morning.
Well, yeah, yeah, but she stood it out with you then.
She stayed with me
Stayed
as
with you.
long as I didn't do anything about it.
Oh, okay. And you have children, right?
Yeah.
And what did your children do when they found out?
Well, my son wanted nothing to do with me. And it was a
Wow.
major shock to my daughter. And she had a master's in psychology from University of Pennsylvania, and it was still, I said to her, I thought you of any of everyone would
Would
understand.
understand. Hmm.
Nope, you were my dad.
Wow.
And my wife at the time went along with me going to therapy as Wendy until we got into February of 2015 when I announced that I was going to a clinic in Philadelphia, for hormone replacement therapy. I had to try it. I had to see if it would help me feel better. And it was that was the final straw for her. She said, "Well, we're getting a divorce. You're going to develop breasts. You're going to become a woman. I'm not a lesbian. I'm not going to live with a woman, and that's it."
Wow.
And all I could say was, "Okay." And I didn't even ask why. There was no need to. So I just kept moving forward with what I needed to do. And she did say to me there was no discussion or no debate about this. And I said, there's nothing to discuss. This is my life, and I have to take care of myself.
Hmm.
And if you are along with me, that's fine. But if not, that's it.
Hmm.
I'm not compromising my new life to please anyone. I have to take care of me and be who I am.
Now, what did you were you working at the time?
Um, my tech career had ended in about around 2012. Um, I had been a consultant working in the computer field, going into corporations, designing systems for them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I'd done that for 18 years after I got laid off as an employee. And I decided I didn't want to be an employee anymore. Uh, Working for other people wasn't a pleasant experience for me. And now that I understand my human design, I get why.
Mm-hmm.
and, and during those first 6 months before I started living full time, I just worked on my own mind and mental set. So when I started living full time, I was perfectly happy. Didn't have any fears. I just faced every new situation head on and went right into it. Um, I would do things like visioning how it would feel. How would I feel uh, going through my legal name change? I had to go appear in court in Pennsylvania and stand in front of a judge and announce to the entire courtroom who I was, what I was doing, and why. I did it.
You did it.
And
Took a lot of courage.
um, yeah, I it takes courage, but you also have to know that you need this, and there is just no other option. Um, Within the transgender community, it's called TOD, transition or die.
Well, yeah, it's important to live as authentically as we can.
Exactly.
So you've never stopped evolving.
No.
Okay.
Um, every time I would get to a certain, well, um, during the first 2 years, I found a surgeon. I went to NYU for my surgery to be, as I said, as I was always saying to people, I'm correcting my birth defect.
Hmm.
Sex assigned at birth is just based on physical anatomy. It's not who I am.
Hmm.
And gender's between the ears, not the legs.
So you went through all this transition then.
Yeah.
How
And
long did it take you to transition from male to female?
well, in order to go from living as a guy to living as a female took me 6 months.
Mm.
To do the rest of the transition process with the surgery, that took another year and a few months to go through the process of finding a surgeon, going through the consult, which takes anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half to get a consult,
Wow.
to get in line waiting for surgery. I was lucky. My surgeon at NYU had just started working there in January of 2017. She had been at the University of Maryland and now she was at NYU. And I got a surgery date in the summer of 2017 because it was a short line. I went through the surgery and my first time, Barbara, going back in to see my therapist after that, I said, okay, now what?
Hmm. Yeah, that's true, right? After,
Uh-huh. All these monumental changes,
hmm.
it's all a life change. And we all go through life changes. Some are more profound than others. Moving across the country into a new location where you've never been and didn't know anyone or anything like that. That's a life change.
Hmm.
And it all begins up here
Yeah,
in
at
how
the
you
head.
see and handle yourself.
So now you coach people or you have
I, during, well, my therapist told me to just sit back and relax. Well, I couldn't do that.
okay.
Um, Through NYU, I started going to events. I spoke at some of these events. I also helped other people who were going through their transition. I talked to people at night on the phone before their surgery. Um, I had a good time doing all of that. I thoroughly enjoyed it and I wanted to do more. So that was part of my next evolution. I went into during the pandemic. I left the community where I was living in central Bucks County. I moved back into my house that I still own jointly with my ex-wife because we couldn't sell it during 2015 because the market was so bad. So I wound up living in a basement apartment in my house for 2.5 years, during which time I set up my website, I set up online coaching for other people going through transition. And I did that until the end of 2022.
Oh, wow. Just recently. Okay.
Yeah. 2023, my ex agreed we need to sell the house and everybody go their separate ways. So that's what we did. And it took me 6 months to do that. So that's when I ended my coaching of transgender people in transition. That's when I ended it in 2023. Worked for 6 months, um, sold the house, and I still didn't have any clear path of where I was going to live. And everybody was asking me, where are you going to live? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wherever it leads us. Mm-hmm.
I felt that I was on a path, and my path didn't have a destination yet as to where I was going, but it was either going to be San Francisco, which was my childhood dream of moving to San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, living with the Grateful Dead and Jefferson Airplane and
Yep.
all the good times
The
there.
good times. I remember those good times too.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
I was a sophomore in high school dreaming of running away, getting away from my parents, getting away from home, and going to San Francisco. Never did it though. Oh well.
Okay. Well, it's never too late though. You never know.
Uh-huh. So, after I sold the house, I was living back in New Hope, Pennsylvania, where I'd lived for 5 years, reconnecting with friends, looking for possibly a place to live. And, but I also was thinking, well, maybe I'll go back to New England because I really did like New England too, because I lived in Massachusetts, I'd lived in um, New Hampshire before going to Philadelphia. Okay. Um, After 4 weeks of living in a hotel, um, one of my LinkedIn connections said, Wendy, if you're considering New England and you're considering Rhode Island, reach out to Jess Power. She's a realtor. So I did. One thing led to another. And by July of 2023, I was living in Providence, Rhode Island.
Oh,
I'd never
wow.
been here as an adult. I
Hmm.
didn't know anyone. And I'd never even been in the state. I've always driven by it. So
It must be a beautiful area.
I absolutely love the
Hmm.
city. I love the state. The people have been fantastic here. And everybody knows that I was born transgender. They know my entire story. I am not a secret from anyone.
Hmm.
And that's been more of an evolution than ever for me.
Now, do your children talk to you, or they're still angry or upset?
Uh, well, my son is no longer with us. He committed suicide.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Many other reasons and other factors involved. And, that happened in 2018. And my daughter and I are okay. We're just not close anymore. And I've left the door open, and whatever happens, happens. We do text occasionally, and that's about it. Um, my ex, um, we divorced amicably. We split everything 50-50, and most of the time I gave her more. And we went our separate ways, but we are still in touch. We occasionally talk on the phone, we text frequently, and that's it. But it's my ex wife and just a few people from my previous life that had stayed with me. Everybody else is gone.
It's gone. I mean, they walked away from you or they
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
accept.
Did
Yeah,
not
people are
accept it
so
at all.
judgmental. It's horrible. You need to
Well, that's one of the reasons why
Mhm.
I absolutely love Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Um, when I started coming, I made a lot of acquaintances in 2024. I don't know if they knew about my past or not. I didn't make that an issue. I was just me being social. And then after the last election, that's when I decided, no, I have to do more. I need to put my voice out there
Mhm.
and speak to people and try and get people who were not born transgender to understand what this is all about, because all the politicians and all the religious people that are putting out all kinds of stuff about us that are lies and misinformation and just outright BS. I've got to counter that. I've got to do something. So that's why I started podcasting
Oh, okay.
in 2023, was to counter that. And now I'm in a mode where I want to go into corporations, businesses, government agencies, and do trainings on this and really put my voice out there to try and make a difference.
Are they open
And
to it?
uh, well, I just started doing that part this year.
Oh, okay.
Um, I I have spoken with groups of people before, um, not as a paid speaker or trainer or anything like that, but I've done it and it makes a difference. I can change people's perspectives and give them a framework by which to understand someone like me or someone who's gay or anywhere in the LGBT world. We're all born this way, and there are um, what I found when I was in Toastmasters for a year. Um, Sex and gender are synonymous in our society for most people. Both are interchangeable words, and
Mhm.
they're not. It's a very different. Gender is how you identify as who you are and who you feel you are. And sex is who you are attracted to and who
Mhm.
you fall in love with. And that's two distinct things. And our culture and our society is one of the few in the world that commingle those and make them synonymous.
Now, do you help families or parents,
Yes,
with
definitely.
children with the same situation that you've been in?
That's one of the reasons why I'm writing a book for parents, because I don't want other parents to do what mine did to me. I've gone through this whole process of forgiving them.
Mhm.
We had a very strained relationship, to say the least. I didn't talk to my father from 1980 or so on. The next time I ever saw him was at his funeral in 2001, in 2001.
Wow. Was that because of how you felt about yourself, or did he
That
know?
Well, he and I had all through my childhood. There was he took away my very first and ultimate favorite toy at about age 2 or 3, which was my doll. I don't know where it came from, but that was my favorite. He wanted me to be in Little League, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, play football with the guys. I didn't want any of that.
Mhm.
And I always felt that I was a source of disappointment to him. and he was always withdrawn from me. So uh, my mom was very caring, but she was totally under the thumb of my father. A typical 1950s housewife.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And back then they didn't know any, I mean, they had
Right,
no one to help them, let alone help,
right.
your son or daughter figure out, you know, who they are.
Yeah, my mother didn't even start to live herself independently of my father and have her own checkbook, her own job until after I was out of college in the 70s.
That was typical.
Yeah.
So wow. So what do you tell parents? Do parents come to you, or is it, through your podcasting,
Through my
that you through your
podcasting, and
podcasting?
they see me, and I explain to them what it is. I actually had a conversation locally in person with a gentleman who was going through a tough time with his 17-year-old daughter, assigned female at birth, telling him, I'm non binary, or I think I might be gay or bisexual, but I don't know yet. And then she started telling him how she wanted to be addressed, what her name was, and it was driving him crazy.
Hmm.
So I wound up talking with him for about half an hour one evening, explaining to him she's just reacting to how she was born. And she's been under your control from the time she was born until she's 17. Now she's asserting herself and she knows how she feels. She knows who she is. She knows the pronouns she wants. And by the way, if that's tough for you to handle, remembering pronouns for a non binary person, don't use them.
Hmm.
Use her name. And we had a total of 3 conversations over the course of about a month and a half. I saw him early I saw him late last year, in the fall of last year, and he introduced me to his friends, saying, "This is Wendy. She helped me with my kid. She doesn't drive me crazy anymore. I understand it now."
Hmm.
That felt good, Barbara.
Yeah, because you're
I've
helping others understand better.
Yeah, and I decided this past year, I started testing it in the fall, talking to people locally that I know, that if I start putting myself out as a consultant to go into government agencies, businesses, or any place like corporations or whatever to do trainings on all of this, um, how would that um, be received? And talking with people about that. And I've I've gotten nothing but encouragement to do that, that it's desperately needed.
Well, people need a better understanding.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious, what age? Um, so of course, a girl feels she's a boy, but at what age do you feel that they really understand who they are and then start making the transition?
Um, in terms of knowing how they feel, that happens at a very young age for most people. Um, there are exceptions, and I've on our podcast, we've interviewed people that said this just hit me later in life.
Hmm.
When I drilled down on that, yeah, they probably knew how they felt when they were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, but they were repressing it because socialization from parents and school and people around you lets you know that feeling like you should be a girl is not socially acceptable. So you hide it and you repress it. And it gets to a point where you just can't live like that anymore. It's
Mhm.
living a lie. Um, the number of people that we've interviewed on our podcast that talk about how they went from being very reserved, uh, angry, having mood swings, depression, anxiety levels, all of that is so common. And once they start living authentically, it's like a light turns on.
Light turns on for them because they're
Um,
living who they're meant to live, who they're meant
right.
to be.
My therapist told me in my second year of therapy with her that my psychiatrist and she, who knew one another, talked. They'd each met my male facsimile or my male representative, as I call him.
Hmm.
They each met him. And then within about my second or third visit with each of them, they met Wendy.
Wendy. Hmm.
They could not get over the personality change. I was repressing huge blocks of my personality. I couldn't be open with people because I was hiding a secret.
Well, that's it. So what is something that you wish more people would understand about transgender experience?
This is how we're born. So many people think it's a choice. It's not. Um, to choose to live in the gender opposite, the one you were born supposedly into,
Hmm.
um, is a very scary thing in our society. And to make that transition is a huge step. And I just wish that people would understand that this is what people need to feel good about themselves, who they are, and just accept us as human beings.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I have a question. So, you see a lot like in sports, for instance, you have people that were women that are now men and vice versa.
Mhm.
Do you feel that in the sports it's unfair to the team? Because, a man is definitely so much stronger than us.
Well, this is something that a lot of people don't understand, and it's rarely talked about on the news or anywhere in media. Once I was on estrogen for easily 2 years, my male strength was gone.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
It
Okay.
changes muscle structures, it changes body fat locations.
Oh,
Your whole
interesting.
physical body reacts to estrogen to make a huge difference. So, if someone who was assigned male at birth transitions and is on estrogen for, I'd say, a minimum of a year to 2 years, there is no male advantage left. Bone structure is pretty much it. It doesn't change your bones, your strides, or anything like that. But also, too, how many transgender people living as girls in their teens or their 20s win against other girls or
Mhm.
other women? It's not that many. There's no real huge advantage. But there's a common belief in
Mhm.
cisgender society that all that muscle strength stays. No, it doesn't. I
Right.
can
So once you
testify to
take all
that.
those hormone therapy, then it does change.
Right, right. Especially if you've had the what they call the bottom surgery,
Hmm.
all that strength is gone. There
Oh,
are there's no more testosterone production in your body at all.
all right. Yeah, I've never known that. That's why I asked the question because
Good.
I was just wondering that, because you see so much on the TV,
Hmm.
about the men and women and everything else. I was curious to that. So did I mean, here's a personal question. Did you have all the surgeries?
Uh, I opted not to do breast augmentation because by my second year, was very happy with B cup breasts.
Oh, okay.
And my cosmetologist at the salon that I was using in the Philadelphia area told me, Wendy, don't don't go bigger than a C.
Hmm. Yeah, smart
she
lady.
well, she was telling me she was getting breast reduction because her
Hmm.
chiropractor said her back problems were because of the additional weight.
Yeah, no doubt. Hmm.
So I did the bottom surgery, um, and it was fantastic. Uh, I can remember by my second follow-up visit, um, about a month after surgery, walking down 30th Street from 7th Avenue to 1st Avenue to the doctor's office at NYU, and looking at myself in the black glass of the storefront, perfect reflection, just looking at it, just laughing, smiling, going, wow, you finally did it.
We did it. Took a lot of courage, I have to say. It's
Hmm.
oof, so
And
what a story.
and as far as the other thing that I found out that I had repressed was my sexual orientation.
Hmm.
Um, I was curious, so I put myself on Match and I started dating men. And I did not put anything about my past. And I was curious as to, well, would they notice anything about me? Would
Hmm.
anything about me give me away? And it didn't.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
And I wound up uh, having relations with a guy. And it was fantastic. And he had no clue. And that's exactly what my therapist and my surgeon told me would happen. So I knew as a guy I wasn't gay. I
Hmm.
was not attracted to men. And even when I first transitioned, there are men out there who do like to date transgender people who have not had the surgery
The
yet.
surgery. Hmm.
Um, and that's something that is actually fairly common. And I've often thought that those were men who were closeted gay or bisexual. But I was offered a lot of money to go out on dates, and I didn't do it. It wasn't me, it wasn't who I was. So after surgery, I had to know. And it was a complete shock, a
Wow.
surprise.
So do you eventually tell them if if it's a relationship or no? Or there's no need?
Uh, at in 2018 and 2019, when I was dating, no. Um, I had decided that if it got to a point where the L word was being exchanged, or we were going to live together, or anything like that, then everything would be up front.
Hmm.
But before any kind of serious relationship, I didn't feel a need to reveal. Now, because you can Google my name
Mm,
and
that's true. Yeah, everything.
everything's online and my
Hmm.
entire story's out there, I'm up front. And that's when I see guys walking away.
So
They're initially attracted,
mhm.
and then they're gone.
Then they're gone. Yeah. Well, yeah, they're fearful or who knows how
Hmm.
they're feeling. So let me ask you, if you could like distill your mission into one simple truth or takeaway, what would it be, for people? I mean, it's just a shame that so many people are judgmental.
Hmm. Uh, it would be very simply uh, living your truth is the most important thing you can do for yourself. When I came out to a group of guys that I was watching a Celtics game with at the bar, and I decided, no, I'm just going to tell them about my past. And I did. One of the guys who was looking at me was a lawyer. It was his profession. And he looked at me and said, Wendy, we all liked you before. Um, and some of us figured it out and some of us didn't. But he said, now I admire you.
Mhm.
I said, why? He said, because you're living true to yourself, and most people I know don't.
That is the truth. Believe me, I know that is the truth.
And that is overriding some of the best, nicest, most authentic, open, caring people I've ever met are in what is called the queer community. That embraces all of LGBT world. They know what it's like to be marginalized, to be hated, to be feared,
Mhm.
and they don't want to do that to other people.
I remember when I worked at a General Nutrition Center, one of my managers was gay. And when the upper management came to the stores, he noticed that. And then he told me to fire him. And I told him, I will not fire him. Guy does a damn good job. Why would you want me to fire somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're different, And I said
Right.
to him, you need to get a life and understand that not everyone is like you. Everybody has their own, being authentic. And I wouldn't, I told him, if you want, then fire me. I'm not going to do it. And he was very upset with me, actually gave me a warning. Um, but
Um,
I didn't do it though. And then a few days later, when he went back to the corporate office, he called me and he said, I really thought about it and I give you a lot of credit for standing up for your people.
Excellent.
And it was, why would you do something like that because of somebody else
Mhm.
that they're different?
Right. Well, that's when, I see it on LinkedIn with people who are transgender, who are
Mhm,
working. Some of the things they say about how they get treated at work.
mhm.
That's why I want to go into companies and into
Tell them.
businesses and talk with people. Um,
I say,
you know,
live and let live. I mean,
well, that's one of the things I love about New England. That's a New England philosophy. Even conservative people in New England who don't necessarily agree with anything I stand for or how
mhm,
I live, it's live and let live.
mhm.
And that's the way the rest of the country should be.
Yeah, well, you know that and I know that. So, maybe one day while we're still
Exactly.
alive, we'll see this.
One can
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely
people are
hope.
judgmental. I mean, I used to be called witch and voodoo and because I was a healer and
Hmm.
hypnosis and I was afraid to say who I was. So I can
Right.
imagine how you felt with this scenario.
Uh, I have discovered through hypnotherapy, there were things in my subconscious mind that my early work didn't get to.
Mhm.
Or I was able to set those traumas beside and move on from 2015 till now. But as I started becoming more visible and out to people, it got scarier and scarier.
Mhm.
And in January of last year, I had to do something. It was just the thought. I've spoken on stage 10 times in Manhattan in different scenarios, not LGBT stuff, but just on stage talking about to people about my story
Mhm.
and who I am. And I enjoyed it. But the thought of doing that again last year just scared the heck out of me.
So now you do it on podcasting, right? You have a podcast?
I have a podcast that I co host with a lovely woman that I met online. and we've had a great working relationship for almost 3 years, 2.5 years, something like that. And Lynn has been absolutely wonderful.
She's a
She's a
sweetheart.
cisgender woman. She didn't know much about LGBT, had gay friends or acquaintances and, things like that, but knew very little about transgender or all of that. So from December of 2023, when we first started recording for her podcast and a chapter in her book, we recorded until the end of April of 2024. We had over 30 hours worth of video recorded of her and I.
Wow.
And by that point, we did a agreement to set up a brand new podcast, which I hallucinated the name one night. What do I do? Ah, I demystify being born
Mhm.
transgender. So
Perfect name.
Demystifying the Transgender Journey became the name, and I sent an email off to Christine Blosdale and off to
Mhm.
Lynn. What do you two think of this for a name for our podcast? Yes.
And there you go. And that was born. So Wendy, I was so happy that you came on my podcast. And
Oh, thank
where can
you.
my listeners get a hold of you?
Meet wendycole.com.
Okay. And the name of the podcast again?
Demystifying the Transgender Journey. And on Meet Wendy Cole is the link to Demystifying to see all of that. There's a link to um, approximately 60 of my personal podcast interviews where I've been interviewed by other hosts like yourself. And there's the link to my LinkedIn profile, which talks about what I do. And I have a brochure on there, which really outlines what I do and the benefits that people will gain when I come into their company, their place of business, or their organization to talk with them.
Talk with them. Well, Wendy, I cannot thank you enough, believe me, for coming on my podcast, sharing your story, your perspective and your wisdom, with all of us today. And conversations like this helps bring more understanding, more compassion, and
Yes.
humanity into the world. And I truly appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And to everyone listening, thank you for being here and for being part of my community, the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast. And sometimes the most powerful things that we can do is simply listen with an open heart and a willingness to learn from one another. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, please be sure to subscribe to the Spiritual Warrior Coach podcast and please leave a review because it helps others discover these meaningful discussions that we have. So until next time, remember to take care of your energy, trust your inner wisdom, and continue walking your path. And remember that you are worthy, you are enough, and you are truly loved. So have a beautiful week filled with love and with light. Love, Barbara.